Kody Brown had pulled off many surprises over the years, but this one hit differently. Sure, viewers expected the drama, but they did not expect him to suddenly walk around trying to repair relationships like he was hosting his own personal redemption tour. And if you are wondering who took it the hardest, well, Robyn didn't even try to hide it. The moment word reached her that Kody had been quietly visiting the other women, apologizing for years of tension and chaos, something in her snapped. You could almost feel it. She went from confused to blindsided to furious, all in a way that made you wonder if this had been building for a long time. Now, here is the strange part. According to people close to the family, Kody didn't tell Robyn anything at first. He just headed out on this apology mission without checking in, without explaining, without easing her into it. And given how tightly bonded they had been for so long, you can imagine what that felt like. Someone who once held all his attention suddenly watching him reconnect with the very women she thought were out of the picture. But let me slow down for a second, because the timing matters. This happened at a point when the family was already stretched thin. The property arguments, the emotional fallout, the shifting alliances. Everything felt fragile. So when Kody suddenly decided he needed to right old wrongs, it landed like a shockwave. First place he went. The last place Robyn expected. Honestly, it was the last place he expected, too. He drove on out to talk to Christine. The woman who publicly walked away, said she felt ignored, seemed absolutely done. And this visit alone would have been dramatic, but the apology he gave her stunned everyone who heard about it. He admitted things that he had danced around for years. Not excuses, not attempts to shift blame, real admissions. And that is where things began to spiral for Robyn, because while Kody was out there owning his mistakes, she started to notice something. Every apology he made chipped away at the story she had been told. For years she believed the downfall of the family was shared, that everyone played a part, that Kody tried his best. Hearing him admit he failed them made her question everything she thought she understood. What made it even harder was that people around her noticed she was losing control of the narrative. The calm, steady presence she once projected started to crack. She was asking questions she never asked before. She was pressing Kody for details. She was replaying conversations in her head, trying to make sense of a version of events that suddenly looked different. By the time the news reached Robyn that Kody had gone to see Janelle, she was already uneasy. But uneasy turned into something sharper when she realized he hadn't just stopped in to check on her. He went there to apologize in the same open-hearted way he did with Christine, and that shook Robyn more than she expected, because if there's one thing that defined the past few years, it was the distance between Kody and Janelle. The arguments, the icy holiday seasons, the financial strain, the way they both insisted they were done trying, that relationship seemed beyond repair. So watching Kody suddenly put in this kind of emotional effort with her felt like a threat. Not because she thought he would leave, but because she had gotten used to being the only one who received that level of attention from him. Now she was watching it get redistributed. People close to the situation said she felt blindsided that he didn't mention any of this before he drove over. And, honestly, that tracks. She's used to being in the loop. She's used to knowing what he's feeling before anyone else does. Seeing him reconnect with the other wives without her involvement made her feel shut out, and it played straight into her biggest fear, losing the position she held for so long. But the apology he gave Janelle wasn't simple. This wasn't a quick, "I'm sorry things got messy." He went deeper. He admitted he hadn't listened. He admitted he pushed too hard. He admitted they both got stuck in cycles that burned them out. And then he said something that stunned Janelle enough that she repeated it to someone later. "I should have been better to you." For a man who rarely acknowledged his part in the breakdown of anything, those words had weight, and they had consequences. Because as soon as Robyn heard that, something inside her spiraled. If he was admitting all this to Janelle, what else was he planning to revisit? What other truths was he about to uncover that she wasn't prepared to hear? These apologies were more than apologies. They were rewrites, reinterpretations, corrections to a story she thought was settled, and you could feel the shift starting. The dynamic that once felt stable for her was changing. Fast, Kody's tone with her in conversations felt different, softer in some moments but more distracted in others. Like he was thinking about the other women more than before, like he was remembering parts of those relationships he had buried. Robyn did not like that, not because she didn't want peace, but because she didn't trust what would happen to her marriage if he kept going down this path. He came home from Janelle's with a heavy quiet. And if you know this family at all, you know that Kody's quiet is never calm. There's always something brewing. But what was brewing this time was bigger than any argument they'd had on camera, bigger than the property disputes, bigger than the tension over plural marriage, because he wasn't done apologizing. There was one more stop on his list, and this is the one that made Robyn realize their marriage wasn't just under stress. It was unraveling in ways she couldn't control. The moment Kody mentioned he wanted to apologize to Meri, everything inside Robyn tightened. She didn't explode right away. She didn't even argue at first. She just stared at him, trying to figure out what he meant, because in her mind that relationship was long gone. The emotional bridge had collapsed years ago. So why was he suddenly circling back to a woman he had already emotionally divorced? And the part that rattled her most was how calm he was when he said it. No hesitation, no bitterness, not even frustration. Just a quiet conviction that made the whole thing feel serious. This wasn't a symbolic apology. This wasn't a polite gesture. This was something deeper. And for Robyn, that was dangerous. She kept asking him the same question in different ways, almost hoping for a different answer each time. What exactly are you going to say to her? He didn't give much, not because he didn't want to. It was because he wasn't fully sure himself. He just knew he owed her more than the cold distance he used to justify the end of their marriage. He had hurt her, and he finally understood the weight of that. When he left for the meeting with Meri, Robyn paced the house for hours, and people close to her say that wasn't something she usually did. She tried calling him twice. He didn't answer. That only made her more anxious. But here's where things get strange. The conversation between Kody and Meri lasted much longer than anyone expected. Reports say it stretched well past an hour, enough time for years of resentment, regret, misunderstanding, and silence to unravel. Enough time for things to come out that hadn't been said since the early seasons of their marriage. And when Kody walked back in later that evening, the look on his face told a story even before he said a word. He wasn't angry, he wasn't drained, he wasn't defensive. He looked reflective, almost lighter. Robyn saw that immediately, and it wasn't comfort she felt. It was panic, because whatever had happened with Meri, it shifted something in him. It softened him in a way that wasn't directed at her. It wasn't the softness she had gotten used to. It was something older, something familiar. The kind of softness he used to show when the family still felt whole, and for the first time in a long time, Robyn felt like she wasn't the center of his emotional world. That scared her more than she expected. She kept asking him to talk about it. He kept answering in short lines that only made her more unsure. It was important. She needed to hear it. I owe her more than I gave her. Robyn couldn't hide her reaction. She tried to steady her voice. She tried to keep her expression neutral. But every time he talked about Meri with even a hint of respect or regret, something tightened in her chest. Not because she was jealous of Meri, because she was losing her place in the story. For years she had been the closest to him, the safe space, the calm in the storm. Now she was watching him circle back to the women he had pushed away. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with remorse. And that shift was more threatening than anything else. By the time they went to bed that night, she was silent, not the soft silence of comfort. The kind that signals something is beginning to crack under the surface. But the real break came later, because apologizing was only the beginning. The moment Kody started re-examining the past, he also began re-examining his present. And that meant looking at his marriage to Robyn with a level of honesty she wasn't prepared to face. Over the next few days, something about Kody's energy changed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was subtle enough that most people wouldn't notice it unless they lived with him. But Robyn noticed every bit of it. The way he moved through the house, the way he paused before answering questions, the way he seemed deep in his head, replaying old memories he hadn't touched in years. He wasn't withdrawing from her. It wasn't that. It was more complicated. He was reorienting himself, and she could feel herself slipping out of the center of his focus. She tried bringing up normal daily plans to ground things, dinners, the kids' bills, tasks around the house. Usually yes. Those conversations pulled him back into the moment. But this time he gave half answers. He nodded without really hearing what she said. That alone was unsettling. But what really got to her was when he started bringing up the past out of nowhere. He asked her questions she had never heard from him before. Do you think I handled things wrong with them? Did I contribute to the distance more than I realized? Was I hard to live with during the move? Do you think I made decisions out of fear? Each question hit her harder than the last, because Kody never looked backward like this. He always pushed forward, even if it meant ignoring the damage behind him. Hearing him re-examine old choices wasn't just surprising. It was alarming, because the more he questioned the past, the more he questioned the version of events she had been given, and the more he questioned the past wives' choices, the more he softened toward them. Not in a romantic way, not in a getting back together way, but in a way that reopened emotional doors she thought were locked for good. That created a tension she couldn't shake. At one point she asked him quietly, "What brought this on?" He hesitated before answering, and that hesitation told her everything. "It just feels like the right time," he finally said. But she didn't buy that. His timing was too sudden, too intense, too perfectly aligned with the unraveling around them. She knew him well enough to know this kind of introspection didn't just appear out of nowhere. Something had triggered it, and she had a sinking suspicion. It was more than guilt over the past. It was something changing inside him. Something had shifted his vision of what the future should look like. Something that didn't revolve around protecting their marriage the way it once did. That night, she tried talking through it some more, hoping for a clearer picture of where his head was. But instead of comforting her, he said something that made her feel the ground tilt a little under her feet. "I think I've been holding on too tight to the wrong things." He didn't say what those things were, he didn't explain. But the implication lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. Robyn sat there trying to read between the lines, and every interpretation made her stomach tighten. Because if he had been holding on to the wrong things, then what did that make her role in all of this? A support? A partner? Or part of the very problem he was trying to fix? She didn't ask. She couldn't. She wasn't ready for the answer, but she felt the shift growing stronger with every moment he spent in this new headspace. And just when she thought things couldn't get more disturbing, Kody made a decision that turned everything upside down. He wanted to bring the family together, not just calls, not just polite interactions, a real meeting, all of them in person. And that was the moment Robyn realized this wasn't just an apology tour, it was a reset. A reset that might cost her more than she ever expected. The next morning, Kody was already awake, pacing the kitchen like someone preparing for a speech he didn't want to give. Robyn walked in, expecting to ease into the day, but the look on his face made her stop in her tracks. He didn't look angry, he didn't look withdrawn, he looked determined, and that was almost worse. Before she even reached for a mug, he said, "I am going to talk to all of them." In person, he said it calmly, like it was a casual decision, but she heard the weight under it. "All of them," she said, trying not to sound alarmed. He nodded. "Meri, Janelle, Christine, everyone." That word, everyone, hit her like ice water. She set the mug down with a soft click. "What do you mean, a video call?" "No," he said. "A real meeting, a family meeting. It's overdue." She felt her pulse jump. "For what? What are you trying to prove, Kody?" He didn't raise his voice, he didn't snap. He just looked tired, wrecked almost. "I want to take responsibility for what I did. All of it. I need to look them in the eyes and own the damage." Robyn stared at him. The phrase "take responsibility" clung to the air like smoke. She had known something was shifting inside him, but she thought it would pass. She thought it was just the holiday emotions, the stress, the guilt he always wrestled with around family issues. But this wasn't passing. It was building. It was gaining structure. And now it had a goal. She felt her voice tighten. "You don't owe them a reunion, Kody." He finally sat, elbows on the table, hands clasped together like he was bracing himself. "It's not about owing them, it's about fixing what I broke." That word, fixing, cut deeper than she expected. "So you think apologizing fixes everything?" she asked. His answer was soft. "Number, but it starts something." That made her flinch, because she could hear what he didn't say. "It opens doors." Maybe doors she didn't want opened. Maybe doors she thought were locked for good. She lowered herself into the chair across from him. "And where does this leave us?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked conflicted, like he was processing it in real time. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "It leaves us where we've always been, but I can't keep living like the world ended when the marriage fell apart. I have to deal with the fallout honestly." She swallowed hard. A feeling she couldn't quite define rose in her chest. Part fear, part jealousy, part uncertainty. "I'm not stopping you from making peace," she said. but this feels like something bigger." "It is," he admitted. "It's bigger than us." That was the first moment she felt genuinely afraid. Because if something was bigger than their marriage, then their marriage wasn't the anchor anymore. It wasn't the center. It wasn't the priority. And for years, it had been. She tried to sound calm even as her mind was racing. "When are you planning this?" "I want to call them today," he said. "Set it up for next week." "Next week. Not someday. Not eventually. Next week." Robyn leaned back, stunned. It was happening fast. Too fast. She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him this would cause more chaos, reopen wounds, drag them back into the turmoil they barely survived. But telling him no now would look like she was trying to control the narrative, trying to keep him isolated, trying to keep the past women at arm's length. And she knew how that would be interpreted, so she said nothing. But inside, she was replaying every moment of the last few months, searching for signs she missed. Because this wasn't a small shift. This was a full pivot. A change of direction that wasn't just emotional. This could reshape the entire structure of their future. Then he stood up, grabbed his phone, and said, "I am going to start making calls." She watched him walk out of the room. And in that moment, she knew the apology tour wasn't just beginning, it was already in motion. Kody stood outside on the back patio with his phone pressed to his ear. Robyn watched from the kitchen window, pretending to clean the counter while really trying to read his body language. Every shift, every pause, every sigh. She couldn't hear the words, but the silence told her plenty. He wasn't calling a contractor. He wasn't talking to a friend. He was making the first family call, and it was to her Meri. Robyn could tell by the way his shoulders tightened. It was the same look he always had when talking to his first wife, a mix of history, guilt, and an emotional distance he never fully understood. She leaned closer to the window, hands gripping the edge of the sink. At first, he didn't move much, just listened. But then she saw something she didn't expect. He smiled. Not a big, happy grin, not a flirtatious smirk, just a small, sad, genuine smile. A smile that came from recognition. From memories. From familiarity. From something she thought had died years ago. She watched him nod slowly as he spoke. His shoulders lowered. His posture softened. It was the kind of softening he never showed when he was defensive or fighting. It was the softening of a man letting go of something heavy, and that was when panic hit her. Because this wasn't just closure. This wasn't just checking a box. It looked like two people remembering they used to care about each other. Even if the romantic part was long gone, the emotional connection still lived somewhere beneath the rubble. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see the change. Then came the moment that made her chest tighten. Kody ran a hand through his hair the way he used to when he was nervous. And then, he laughed softly at something Meri said. Robyn stepped back from the window. She felt the air leave her lungs. He hadn't laughed like that in weeks. Not with her, not with anyone in the house. She tried to tell herself she was overreacting, that it was harmless, that he was simply easing tension. But she knew her instincts well, and her instincts were telling her this wasn't harmless. Kody wasn't just apologizing, he was reconnecting, not romantically, not in a way that threatened the marriage directly, but in a way that shifted the balance she was used to, in a way that cracked open space she always expected to stay closed. 5 minutes later, he walked back into the house, calm, collected, almost relieved. "How did it go?" she asked, pretending she hadn't been watching. He shrugged lightly. "Better than I expected." She was kind. Kind. Robyn forced a smile. "That's good." "Yeah," he said, sitting down. It felt good to talk to her without all the tension. She was really open to the idea of a meeting. "Of course she was," Robyn said, a little too quickly. He glanced up, catching the edge in her voice. "Is that a problem?" She swallowed and shook her head. I just didn't think she'd want to revisit everything." He nodded thoughtfully, not picking up on her real concern. "I think she's ready for closure." Closure. That word again. But it didn't feel like closure. Not from what she saw. It felt like resurfacing, reconnection. Emotional cleanup that might sweep up more than he expected. Then he added, "I'm calling Janelle next." Robyn froze. If the Meri call went well, a call with Janelle could go even better. Their communication had been strained, sure, but Janelle was always the easiest for him to talk to. The one who understood him. The one who didn't fight his energy. The one who met him calmly even when he was wrong. If I don't do it now, I'll overthink it. She didn't say anything as he stepped back outside. But this time, she didn't watch from the window. She already knew what she'd see, because something was changing, something she couldn't control, something that wasn't slowing down. And every step he took toward repairing those old connections felt like he was stepping further away from her. Kody stepped outside again, phone in hand, ready to call Janelle. Robyn tried to busy herself, walking around the house, straightening pillows, folding a blanket that didn't need folding, but she kept finding reasons to drift near the back window again. She didn't look out at first, she forced herself not to, but eventually she caved, inching toward the glass until she could see him. This call looked different right away. With Meri, he was stiff, guarded at first, careful with his words. With Janelle, the second she picked up, his whole face changed. He relaxed, not in a romantic way, not in a nostalgic way, in a familiar way. The way you relax when you talk to someone who genuinely knows you, someone who doesn't get overwhelmed by you, someone who has seen you fail and still treats you with dignity. Robyn hated that she could recognize that so easily. At first, they exchanged small talk, weather, kids, grandkids, nothing emotional, but the longer they spoke, the more Robyn could see the tension dissolving from Kody's posture. He leaned on the railing the way he used to when things were good. He talked with his hands more. He even smiled, really smiled. Not forced, not polite, not nervous. It was the kind of smile he gave only when he felt understood. That alone made her throat tighten. Then he said something that made her heart drop. "I should have handled things differently. I see that now." He said it plainly. Honestly. There was no defensiveness at all. Robyn felt the room spin. He had apologized before, but they were apologies mixed with self-protection, explanations, excuses, and disclaimers. This was pure, a real apology, a vulnerable one, the kind she had been waiting years to hear from him, only he wasn't giving it to her. He was giving it to Janelle. She watched him nod slowly, listening. Whatever Janelle said, it hit him hard enough that he had to look down at the ground. Then he ran a hand over his face like he was holding back something emotional. Robyn turned away from the window. She couldn't watch anymore. This wasn't just healing old wounds. This wasn't just clearing the air. This was connection. Not romantic connection. Not "I want you back" connection, but emotional alignment. And that was dangerous. Because emotional alignment was what she used to have with him. It was their strength, their tether. Now it was shifting. She moved to the hallway out of sight and leaned against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. She didn't want to be jealous. She didn't want to feel threatened. But the truth was simple. Kody was reconnecting with a part of himself he had buried to survive the divorce fallout. And that part didn't revolve around her. A few minutes later, she heard the sliding door open. His footsteps moved through the kitchen before he stopped in the doorway where she stood. "Hey," he said quietly. She forced a smile. "How did it go?" "It was good," he said, his voice thoughtful. "Really good. Better than I expected." Robyn nodded slowly. "So she's coming to the meeting?" She said. "Yes," he said. She actually sounded relieved. That word struck her again. "So Meri and Janelle are both on board?" she asked. "Yeah." Kody rubbed the back of his neck. "I think this might actually work." That hopeful tone in his voice was the final hit she wasn't prepared for. Because he wasn't just hopeful about reconciliation. He was hopeful about being seen, really seen, by the women who used to challenge him, question him, and hold him accountable in ways she never did. She felt a sting in her chest but tried to hide it. "I'm glad it went well," he nodded, not noticing the strain in her voice. "Now I just have to call Christine." Her stomach dropped. If the calls with Meri and Janelle shook her, a call with Christine would blow everything wide open. "Oh," she said, trying to sound neutral. "That one might be harder," he shrugged. "Maybe, but it has to happen." He walked back out to the patio, phone in hand. Robyn didn't follow. She didn't need to. She already knew this next call wasn't going to be about closure. It was going to be about the one person who had broken him the most. And the one person she feared still held a part of him he never fully got back. Kody stood still a moment on the patio, almost as if he had to gather himself before dialing. Robyn stayed inside, her hands gripping the edge of the counter with both hands. She wasn't watching this time. She didn't need to. She knew exactly what this call meant, and she wasn't sure she wanted to witness any of it. There was history in this one, deep history, painful history. History she could never rewrite no matter how hard she tried. Christine wasn't just an ex-wife, she was the rupture. She was the line in the sand. She was the moment their entire family broke open, and for years Robyn had been the face associated with that break, whether she liked it or not. She listened as he dialed, the long silence stretching between each ring. The kind of silence that only exists when someone is waiting for a ghost to pick up the phone. When Christine finally answered, Kody's posture shifted instantly. Even from inside, even without hearing a word, Robyn could feel it. He straightened up. He stopped fidgeting. He held the phone a little tighter, not out of affection, out of impact, because whether he admitted it or not, Christine leaving had wounded him in a way he never recovered from. For a long moment he didn't talk. He just listened. His jaw clenched. His eyes closed, his head bowed slightly. Whatever Christine said, she wasn't cushioning anything. That much was clear. Robyn moved to the hallway where she couldn't see him, and leaned her head back against the wall. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She could picture Christine's tone perfectly calm, direct. Not cruel, but brutally honest. And Kody was absorbing every single word without his usual defensiveness. That terrified her more than anything else. After a minute, his voice finally drifted faintly through the cracked window. "You're right," he said quietly. Robyn squeezed her eyes shut. He didn't say that often. Not to Christine, not to any of them. "You're right" wasn't just an admission, it was respect. A respect he hadn't shown her in a long time. Robyn moved further down the hall, trying to distance herself from the conversation she couldn't even hear, because not hearing it made it worse. Every tone change, every pause, every sigh filled her head with interpretations she didn't want to consider. Then his voice came again, stronger this time, with a low rumble of emotion she hadn't heard from him in years. "I should have listened. I pushed too hard." Robyn's breath caught. That wasn't just an apology. It was an admission of responsibility. It was validation of everything Christine had been saying for years. And if he could finally say those words out loud, it meant he didn't just feel sorry for the fallout. He understood it. He understood her. That was something Robyn feared more than she ever admitted. After another stretch of silence, he said, "Thank you for giving me a chance to say this." "Thank you" to Christine. Robyn covered her mouth with her hand. This wasn't closure. This wasn't emotional cleanup. This was reconciliation. Not romantic, but real. A genuine reconnection between two people who had once shared a life, children, a history deeper than any fight. And that made everything even more complicated. She heard the patio door slide open. She straightened, wiping her face quickly even though she wasn't crying. She just needed to look neutral. Kody walked inside slowly, like the call had drained the last ounce of energy out of him. But there was something else too. He looked lighter, not happier, not excited, just released from blame, from anger, from years of emotional tension he had been carrying like armor. "How was it?" Robyn asked softly. He ran a hand down his face. "Hard," he said, "but good, really good." Robyn nodded, but her stomach twisted. "Is she coming to the meeting too?" she asked. He paused. "She said she would. She wants things to feel." Civil meant participation. Participation meant presence. Presence meant influence. Robyn swallowed. "That's good," she said quietly. Kody leaned against the counter, staring at the floor. "It's strange. After talking to all of them, I feel like, I don't know, like something opened up in me." Robyn forced her voice to stay steady. "Opened up how?" He looked up at her. "Like I've been carrying years of anger I didn't even realize was still hanging on." That sentence hit her like a punch. Because if he was letting go of anger, he was letting go of the emotional wall that used to separate his old marriages from his new one. And once that wall was gone, anything could shift. Everything could shift. He pushed off the counter with a slow breath. "I'm going to lay down for a bit." That took more out of me than I expected. She nodded, watching him walk down the hall. The moment he disappeared from view, her expression collapsed, just for a second. Because she already knew, the apology tour wasn't easing tension. It was rearranging the entire emotional hierarchy of their family, and she wasn't at the top anymore. The next morning, Robyn woke up with a weight she hadn't felt in years. The house was quiet, but her mind wasn't every conversation. Kody had the day before played in her head like a looped video. Meri, Janelle, Christine, every apology, every soft smile, every admission of wrongdoing. She tried to ground herself with routine, making coffee, checking the kids' schedules, folding laundry, but nothing worked. The more she tried to focus on normal tasks, the louder the thoughts became. He's reconnecting with them. He's admitting things he never admitted to me. He's letting them back into his emotional space. Each thought felt like a chisel, slowly carving away at the sense of stability she had built over the years. By mid-morning, she could no longer contain the tension. She found herself standing in front of the kitchen window, staring out at the patio where he'd been making calls. Her hands gripped the sill so tightly her knuckles whitened. She whispered to herself, almost incredulously, "Why wasn't I enough?" It wasn't the right question, she knew that. She wasn't naive. But it was the question that burned the most in that moment. Because if Kody could apologize like that, like a man unburdening years of guilt, then she had to ask herself what her place really was now. And then it hit her, like a tidal wave she hadn't seen coming. He didn't just apologize, he reflected. He confronted his failures. He opened himself up. And she hadn't been part of it. The reality was suffocating. Robyn moved to the living room, sank onto the couch, and buried her face in her hands. She was furious. Furious at him, furious at herself, furious at the circumstances that left her feeling sidelined. But underneath the anger was something sharper, fear. Fear that she was losing her grip on the marriage she thought she had secured. Fear that Kody was finding fulfillment, connection, and validation in ways she could no longer control. Fear that he was remembering parts of himself that had existed before her, and that those parts were coming alive again, and that fear transformed into a storm of emotion that had been quietly building for months, if not years. A storm that finally reached a breaking point. By the time Kody returned from his own morning tasks, she wasn't waiting politely. She was standing, hands on hips, chest tight, voice sharp. "Kody," she began, the single word heavy with everything she had bottled up. "We need to talk now." He froze for a second, reading her expression. He knew that tone, that sharp edge didn't come lightly. "What is it?" he asked cautiously. "You think you can just do this, just apologize to everyone, and it won't affect us? You think I'm supposed to sit here and watch you reconnect with every single person you hurt and somehow feel fine about it?" Kody ran a hand over his face, sighing. "Robyn, it's not like that." "Not like that?" she echoed incredulously. "You admitted things to Meri. You apologized to Janelle. You even called Christine. And I'm just supposed to watch." "It's not about replacing you," he said softly. "It's about healing, about being honest." "Honest," she shouted. "Honest about what? About everything you did wrong, about everything we struggled with while you hid behind, 'I'm handling it.'" "About what? Tell me, Kody." He was silent for a very long time, letting her words hang in the air. She could feel his hesitation, his unease. However, instead of making her feel better, it only intensified her panic. This wasn't just a fight. This wasn't just tension. This was the moment she realized that the marriage she thought was stable was actually fraying in ways she couldn't stop. She stepped closer, voice trembling. I can't watch this anymore. I can't be a spectator while you fix everything else but us." And just like that, Robyn crossed the line she had managed to hold for years. The line between patience and breaking. Kody looked at her, trying to respond, but she didn't wait. She stormed out of the room, leaving him standing there, quiet, uncertain, and suddenly aware of just how serious this was. Robyn paced the hallway, her mind racing faster than her feet could move. Every interaction from the past 48 hours replayed in her head. The calls, the apologies, the way Kody had softened with the other women while remaining distant with her. It wasn't just jealousy, It was fear. Fear that her marriage was unraveling in real time and that she didn't even know the rules anymore. Kody finally followed her, a quiet determination in his step. He didn't speak at first. He just watched her pace, recognizing the storm that had been quietly building inside her. "Robyn," he said softly, his voice trying to cut through the tension. "I know you're upset, I know this looks bad, but I need you to understand. I'm not replacing you." "I'm not replacing me," she interrupted sharply. "Kody, it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what it feels like. You're connecting with everyone else. Opening up, showing parts of yourself I haven't seen in years, and I'm left wondering if I'm even still a part of your life the way I used to be." He flinched at the intensity in her voice but stayed grounded. "I'm trying to do the right thing. I've been holding on to so much, carrying so much guilt. I just want to fix it." She scoffed, taking a step closer. "Do you even know what you're doing to us? Do you realize that every apology, every confession to them, is pulling you further away from me? I can't compete with history." He swallowed hard, running a hand over his face. "Robyn, this isn't about competing. It's about facing the past honestly. If I don't, none of us can move forward." Her eyes narrowed, tears threatening to spill. "Forward? We are already moving forward, or at least I thought we were. But now you're dragging the past into our present and somehow expecting me to stay calm while you fix what you broke with everyone else." He took a deep breath. "I'm not expecting you to stay calm. I know this is hard, but I can't pretend it didn't happen. I can't pretend I wasn't wrong. I owe them that. And I owe us honesty too." She shook her head, incredulous. "Honesty? This isn't honesty, Kody. This is a tour, an apology tour, and I'm standing here watching it all happen without a say." His expression softened, almost pained. "I didn't realize it would hit you this way, I thought it would be healing for everyone, for me, for us." Robyn's hands trembled, her chest heaving. "Healing? You call this healing? You're tearing apart the life we built together while pretending it's progress." He reached out slowly, almost pleading. "Robyn, I'm not tearing us apart. I need to confront what I've done to all of them and to you." Her laughter, sharp and bitter, cut through the tension. "You confront them. What about me, Kody? When do you confront us? When do I get the apology tour I deserve?" And in that moment, the emotional walls they had built for years collapsed into fragments around them, not with words, not with anger alone, but with the weight of everything unspoken, unresolved, and unavoidable. Robyn finally stopped pacing and looked directly at him, raw and trembling. "I don't know if I can survive this, if this is what our marriage is now." He took a step toward her, voice low and steady. "I want us to survive, Robyn, but I can't do it by hiding anymore. I have to be real with them and with you." The room fell silent, heavy with the unspoken truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. After the confrontation, silence fell over the house, not the comfortable kind of quiet that signals peace, but the tense, lingering silence of two people processing the gravity of what had just happened. Robyn sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring at the floor. Kody stood nearby, his gaze fixed on nothing in particular, lost in thought. The weight of the apology tour and the reconnections with Meri, Janelle, and Christine hung between them like a storm cloud ready to break. Robyn felt it pressing on her chest. She had expected some level of tension, sure, but not this. This raw, atching, destabilizing feeling that seemed to ripple through every corner of their shared life. Hers passed. Kody tried small gestures, touching her hand, offering to make tea, asking if she wanted to talk. But Robyn couldn't respond. She wasn't just upset. She was reeling. The man she had married, the man who had promised loyalty, stability, and partnership, was suddenly someone else. Someone who acknowledged mistakes she hadn't even fully understood herself. By evening, the tension was almost unbearable. Every small noise made her flinch. Every movement he made felt like a reminder that she was no longer the sole center of his emotional universe. Finally, she stood abruptly, pacing the living room. "I can't do this, Kody. I can't pretend I'm fine while you give them a piece of yourself I haven't seen in years. I can't watch you apologize and connect in ways I never got." Kody's voice was calm, but heavy. Robyn, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this to heal. To be honest. To be real. I can't move forward without facing the past. With them and with us. That's just it, she shouted, tears welling up. You're facing the past with everyone else. I'm here, Kody. I'm still here. But you're not facing it with me. You're doing it around me. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then closed it again. Robyn's words had landed deeper than he expected. For the first time in days, he truly considered the cost of his actions. Not on his own conscience, but on their marriage. The tension didn't dissipate overnight. It didn't even soften by bedtime. Instead, it lingered in the air, a constant reminder that the dynamics between them had shifted irreversibly. Every glance, every movement carried weight. As if the house itself had absorbed the emotional upheaval and refused to release it. Night fell, and they lay in bed physically close, yet miles apart emotionally. Robyn stared at the ceiling as her mind ran a mile a minute. She knew this was more than a disagreement. This was a fundamental test of their marriage. She whispered to herself, if this survives,